They were saying when Trump called Israel and said, stop the bombing yesterday, that he now is on the payroll of the Qataris. They knew no one would buy Iran. So that literal talking point of this Israeli think tank with Microsoft is that Trump is now an imposter, Roger.
Well, Alex, I would argue that we have the scars to prove it. They tried to lock me up for 7 to 9 years for some non-existent crime. They actually put Owen Schroyer in jail. They
bankrupted you. They bankrupted me. They tried to put Flynn in prison. They put Bannon in prison. MTG's a traitor. Folks, wake up to the gaslighting. What an insane, bold move by the Likudniks, that's who's doing it, to say that we are imposters. That's like saying your mama is an imposter.
And I've never taken a dime from anybody to express a political view. And the assertion that I did is defamatory and outrageously false. But this decision was made, and the president proved yesterday, for those who say he's a stooge for Israel, yes, he proved yesterday that that's not true. The president's interested in peace. He made a very, very difficult decision.
Yeah, he said, said, I'm particularly angry at Israel, meaning Netanyahu. And why is he angry?
Because they sought almost immediately to violate this very fragile ceasefire. What further proof could you have that within an hour of striking Iran, he wanted to bring them back to the table? He and Marco Rubio are calling them back to the table. This is the peace president. He wants to resolve this. He will resolve this. But we don't need prompting from people who are for Ted Cruz telling us that we're not real MAGA.
Long time Trump confidant of 47 years, no pun intended, his former wingman, worked for many presidents. Roger Stone joins us for the next 45 minutes or so. Then I'll go back to the callers to disagree with me on really thinking these strikes are dangerous and a roll of the dice. Hopefully it all turns out okay. I didn't say it would fail. I just said it's a roll of the dice. And it still remains to be seen. And Roger has a lot to say about that, stonezone.com. You can go there and get all his best-selling books and reports and T-shirts and everything. Former political prisoner target, a true patriot. We wouldn't be here today and having the victories we're having without Roger Stone. Follow him on X. Right there as well at Roger J. Stone Jr. So, the man that wrote the best-selling book, Stone's Rules, joins us right now. Roger, we didn't talk before you came on. We've both been busy. I was trying to get you on for 4 or 5 days. You're able to come on today. When I asked what you wanted to cover, it's exactly where I wanted to go first. These disgusting attempts by these Microsoft, and it is Israeli bot farms, to say anybody that questions these wars and tries to influence the president is a MAGA imposter, needs to shut up, needs to go away, needs to, Alex Jones isn't real, Steve Bannon's not real, Roger Stone's not real, Tulsi Gabbard's not real, MTG's not real. And I even saw some of the bots saying when Trump called up Israel and Mossad yesterday, now confirmed, and said, stop the bombing, and they still did it. 300 targets hit, trying to kill the peace deal, the ceasefire. That they had headlines out, oh, Trump's under Qatari control. That trope that, oh, Qatar is paying people off. Well, I sure as hell never heard from Qatar or the Russians, the Iranians. I sure never got a nickel from them. We're all funded by our listeners and viewers, thealexjoneshow.com. So, Roger, you're ready to unload. So I talked to you during the break. You got the floor, my friend.
Well, Alex, first of all, it's great to finally be able to put this together and be with you. I got up at 4 a.m. Eastern yesterday to fly to Las Vegas. I've got a series of Republican Party meetings out here, giving a speech to the Mortgage Brokers Association, where I will denounce the Federal Reserve Chairman, Jerome Powell, because he refuses to cut interest rates. He cut them when the inflation rate was less problematic for Joe Biden, but he doesn't want to cut them now because he's trying to delay the Trump boom. But Alex, I got to be honest with you. The only reason I've got the energy to do this show, the only reason I have the clarity and the energy to do everything I need to do out here in Nevada is because you recommended methylene blue to me, it was about a month ago. And candidly, I was skeptical. I've used a lot of your products over the years. Let me be very clear. You've never paid me a nickel to promote any of your products. You never asked me to promote them on the show. This is the best product InfoWars store has ever developed. It's an amazing product. The quality of it, as you told me, we're talking about pharmaceutical grade quality. I first read about Bobby Kennedy using it. That piqued my interest. But the only reason I've got the energy to do this show and to unload a lot that's been on my mind is because of this great product.
Well, you're a lot like my dad's dad, and we see this in Trump at 79. As you get older, and my grandfather's brother died like 10 years ago, Leonard Jones, and he was plant managers in Houston over the petroleum geologists, over like the biggest refineries, and he worked up until the time he died, even though he was pretty old. They kept him around just because he still knew how to run it the best. I remember being at dinner with him when I was like 30-something, and I said, well, I plan on trying to retire early. And he goes, Alex, you're a Jones. You're going to work harder and more as you get older, and you just can't help it. And that's because he'd come to Austin from Houston and would be helping remodel, one of his daughter's houses when I go have dinner with him, even though they had a nice house and money, and he would just love to work. It that type. And I know you, people that don't know, you work as much as Trump. You are 20 hours a day. And, I could tell when you've really been pushing it. And absolutely, but you pointed out that, Brain Force is a great nootropic. But this isn't a stimulant like Brain Force. This goes into the very mitochondria. It's amazing. So I thank you for your testimonial on the ultramethylene blue. We've got the best, thealexjonesstore.com. Thank you so much, Rogers. Let's just plug up front then, because we're all under attack. You've got the #1 all-time best-selling book on the Kennedy assassination that's ultra green, meaning it doesn't just stay pertinent, it gets better with time. So let's go to something I was going to say at the end of the interview. Let's just get it out of the way right now. How big are these revelations about JFK? And Trump continues to order it all released, and we learn they don't release it all. And I know you've been following that. Congress is having hearings about it. That's something that's gone off the radar with all this Israel news. We'll get to that in a moment. But what's the latest on the JFK and RFK and MLK declassifications?
Look, the unsung hero here, there's two of them. One is Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna, who continues to fight the bureaucracy, fight the CIA specifically. The other one is Tulsi Gabbard, who works with her, because there are a number of key documents, key videos, key audios, key transcripts that we know for a fact that the Assassination Records Review Board had in the 1990s, and they just suddenly have disappeared. They were not turned over under the president's order. Last, I guess it was Friday, I was in New Orleans. I decided to go by and see Carlos Marcello's home. Carlos Marcello was the gangster who ran the mob in Louisiana and Texas. We know from the Assassination Records Review Board that they had audio recordings from bugs that they put in Marcello's jail cell both before and after the assassination. But they're not among the materials handed over by the National Archives under the president's order. The House Select Committee on Assassinations in the 70s did an entire investigation, and they concluded that organized crime played a very significant role in Kennedy's murder, which they did, along with the CIA, along with Big Texas Oil, along with the ringleader, the drum master, the guy calling the shots, one Lyndon Baines Johnson. Yet not a single document, not a single artifact produced by NARA has to do with Marcello and the mob. So there are a lot of things missing. The CIA continues to hold back all of the material regarding Joanides, who was really the guy who was the CIA's liaison with the House Select Committee, where the CIA basically stonewalled. They produced no documents and no testimony. My hat's off to Anna Paulina Luna, who continues to fight the bureaucracy to get these missing materials, and Tulsi Gabbard, who's been very active in helping her.
And that's another issue. Let's do that before we hit Israel and the real bombshells you've got. Everybody's going to get tomorrow's news today here. Just like I said, the big scandal would be that we didn't really get their fissile material because they shipped it out. Whether that's true or not, I said last week, that's what's going to happen. That'll be the new story, the new scandal. Now the Democrats trying to create that scandal. But we know there was a bunch of people with the auto pen. There was a committee with the Clintons, Obama, and Biden's wife, who would then come to consensus on what they would do and the payoffs they were getting and what would happen. But then we now know there was a subgroup in control of the auto pen that was just selling pardons to run-of-the-mill drug dealers, murderers, criminals for themselves. They were running their own little shop, kind of like stealing from the people that were stealing or stealing, from the committee that was really Biden. So I predicted they would have one person who was willing to be the patsy and say, yeah, it's no big deal. I was authorized by the president to do whatever I wanted. Is if he just told her, you make the decisions. That's what I see happening here. We have a clip here we'll play in a moment. Ex-Biden aide Neera Tanden admits under oath to House Oversight Committee that she controlled Joe Biden's auto pen. Though from all of our whistleblowers that have talked to Ed Martin, it was a consortium, it was a committee that you predicted before they stole the election on air that it would be a committee that would run it because of your sources. So now they're trying to go, oh, this is the lady and it's no big deal. Before I play this clip, this is huge, that the fact this is starting to come out now, and that dovetails with what you said 4+ years ago. The Chinese, the perfect ballots, flown in, jammed in, now all confirmed. The FBI suppressed that, just like the Hunter Biden laptop. That's something in the last 2 weeks with the Iran crisis went off the radar screen. These are some of the biggest scandals ever, Roger, in my view.
Well, Alex, if you actually go back and look at the Alex Jones show several weeks ago, when you and I first talked about this, I named Neera Tanden in that interview as the point person.
You did.
I think she was a point person. What I don't understand, Kash Patel, is why you have not stormed her home at 6 o'clock in the morning with 29 heavily armed FBI agents and arrested her. If she is not prosecuted, then this administration has failed. I believe that all of these auto pen signed documents are invalid. I think they do not have the force of law, and they should be violated. If some federal judge somewhere doesn't like that, well, that'd be too damn bad. We have to have a rebalancing of the scales of justice in this country. Neera Tanden is a criminal. She did this. I'm not sure if she was doing it for ideological reasons or whether she was also doing it for payoffs, but nothing that was signed by the auto pen has the force of law. Trump should act accordingly. If some judge wants to get in the way, well, then challenge the judge.
I agree, Roger, there's no speculation here. You predicted it when Obama got that new White House, alternate White House during the election 2020. You called it all. You probably said, Trump's not having as big a landslide. I've looked at the numbers. He's going to lose a month before, weeks before, and they're going to have this committee that runs it. Biden's a puppet. They'll have him step down at some point. You literally are like crystal ball level. I mean, people say, I'm tomorrow's news today. You've aced that. But specifically, obviously, she didn't just do all of this without authorization. My issue is, you're right. She was the point person. You first reported it. So we've got to raid her and indict her so she flips on all those above her. That's what you're saying.
Exactly. And the real truth is, who was it giving her directions? Was it Susan Rice? Was it Valerie Jarrett on behalf of Barack Obama? In other words, she's a mid-level operative. She's an ideologue. She's a criminal. But I don't think she was making decisions. I think she was carrying out the decisions by the de facto power structure.
Well, obviously, they weren't going to let her rule the Biden plutocracy. So I don't think that's a speculation. The question is, who was it? But you already said 4.5 years ago it was going to be a committee run by Obama. How did you know that?
Because it was clear to me that Joe Biden did not have the mental capacity to be president. It was amazing that they were able to prop him up as much as they were during the 2020 campaign. But I think it is. I think it's absolutely crucial to note here we need, first of all, a Watergate committee style investigation into this in the Congress to get to the bottom, put these people under oath, charge them with treason, pardon me, perjury, if and when they lie. Now, for those who say, well, this is all going to go away because Joe Biden is going to say that he authorized her. Folks, Joe Biden is going to say that he's Mahatma Gandhi and right now he's on Mars. There's no way to control what he's saying. He's around the bend. He's non-communist.
Incredible, but segueing, Trump calls for a special counsel to investigate rigged 2020 election. That ties into all of this. We need a special counsel, I agree, outside of that on the auto pen. But what about the China ballots? FBI suppressed that they knew indeed it all happened, just as all the whistleblowers told the Gateway Pundit and you and I 4.5 years ago.
Exactly. But Christopher Wray, the FBI director, specifically said under oath that he had no evidence whatsoever of foreign interference in the 2020 election. When in fact, he knew about these 20,000 Chinese created fake driver's licenses that were being brought into Chicago. So he's indictable for lying to Congress, a charge that I'm very familiar with. Because,
and by the way, that 20,000 is all we know, is what we know about.
That is correct. And then you have the Secretary of State in Colorado, Jenna Griswold, who posted all the passwords for their entire electoral system online. Arrestable, extremely arrestable. We absolutely do need a special counsel to study this. Ed Martin would be an excellent candidate, or Phil Klein. I think he's the Attorney General of Kansas. They've both done excellent work in this area. But we need a special counsel on the 2020 election. The left tried to say, as you know, there was no evidence whatsoever. Actually, Alex, the evidence of fraud in the 2020 election is overwhelming. It is ubiquitous. There is so much fraud, it's absurd. I would also get you to the rest of the criminals who were involved, the Norm Eisen, Mary McCord, Andrew Weissman crew, all perfectly indictable. I've seen an 82-page indictment already drafted on Andrew Weissman. I'm just waiting for Pam Bondi to pull the trigger.
Well, that's even General Flynn, who we know advises Trump on record, unofficially at the highest level, along with you, put out a report a few days ago saying, where are the indictments? We're 150 days in now, or however many we'll put on the screen. And this is the biggest issue with the public. That's why this war at another level has been a giant distraction to our domestic agenda. We're 156 days in. What the hell is going on here, Roger? Because like you said, this stuff is cut and dry. This is low-hanging fruit.
Well, I totally agree with General Flynn, who remains a very, very close friend. The left likes to call us the Flintstones. I guess they think that's an insult. Frankly, that's a high compliment. General Flynn is one of the finest American patriots I've ever met in my entire life. And I worked for 3 presidents and scores of U.S. senators, governors, members of Congress. I've never met a stronger leader, a greater patriot, or a finer Christian gentleman than Michael Flynn. I've become very friendly with his entire family. This is an entire family, because there are 9 brothers and sisters, an entire family of patriots. And he's absolutely right. But I can't answer your question, Alex, because I don't know the answer. I happen to know, for example, that the Justice Department is examining a case in which the Department of Justice under Joe Biden, New York Attorney General Letitia James, and a woman who's now over at the Fed, essentially as chief disperser of funds, absolutely knew that a New York bank, Standard Charter, was violating the Iranian sanctions and was funneling tens of millions, I think as much as $90 million to Iran in violation of the sanctions. Where are the indictments?
And again, this is the pattern I see with Pam Bondi, Patel, Bongino. They will put out Crossfire Hurricane documents. They will put out FBI suppressed, way bigger than the Hunter Biden laptop, the Chinese, hundreds of thousands, million ballots coming in confirmed. Everything we said at the time for the whistleblowers. and the postal drivers and all of it. They will put out all the truth. They will send out the Epstein files, all the bureau offices investigate, but then nothing happens. So it's very weird.
It is, and I wish I had a better answer for you, but I really don't. I can tell you this, it's not a subject I'm going to give up on. Look, the president, as you might imagine, has been extremely distracted by the situation in the Middle East, but I know he's committed to justice. And perhaps, this argument that, well, if you reveal these things, you'll damage the institution. Please don't make me laugh. I mean, that's like John Brennan saying Tulsi Gabbard's not qualified to be the head of the director of national intelligence. John Brennan, Islamic convert, admitted communist, caught red-handed spying on a Senate committee investigating his illegal use of torture. The man who signed the visas for 4 of the hijackers who we believe attacked America on 9/11. That John Brennan, he says that she's not qualified. Unbelievable.
It's incredible. It's just amazing. And so Trump has loaded the gun. Pam Bondi and Cash Patel have loaded the gun to take down the deep state. We have a dead shot. I don't mean this literally, I'm not being violent, I'm saying it figuratively. And they just need to pull the trigger. And maybe they're hesitating. People get buck fever the first time they got a big buck on the sights and they kind of shake or they can't pull the trigger. I never had that problem when I was 6 years old and shot that first deer. But I just, they need to pull the trigger. And it needs to happen.
One of the concerns, which is a legitimate one, jurisdictionally, is many of these indictments would have to be handed down in D.C. And no Republican, no Trump supporter, no free thinker, no libertarian.
Well, that's what I was told by high-level Justice Department, I won't name names, was you don't understand. The way this works, the jurisdictions we have to do it in are 95% Democrat. That's their problem. That's why they said they want to hit them in different states lower down the chain where they've got better juries so that they can get it done that way. So I guess that's the strategy. So they have to reverse engineer it.
One thing they could do, and I can say this very quickly, all those people who got preemptive pardons have field hearings around the country, send them a subpoena, which they cannot because they've been pardoned, turned down. They refuse to testify, jail them like they did Steve Bannon. And if they do testify, they're likely to perjure themselves. And then you can charge them in Kansas or Mississippi.
Exactly. Get them on perjury. Get them on perjury.
Which, by the way, is a tactic used by the late, great Senator Joseph R. McCarthy.
And they use it on you, but you didn't perjure yourself. It was crystal clear. But the point is we have them in real perjury. It'll be easy.
Well, the actual problem here is you'll never get an honest trial in D.C. Corrupted judges like Amy Berman Jackson, who withheld exculpatory evidence from my defense attorneys, or Emmett Sullivan, who sat on General Flynn's case. You will never get a fair trial. Any Democrat who comes up on charges before those judges will be acquitted. The juries will be rigged. The jury forewoman will be rigged. The entire trial will be rigged, and the judge is in the tank. So you can't blame Pam Bondi for not wanting to bring an indictment in a jurisdiction where she knows no matter how compelling the evidence is, no matter how overwhelming the evidence is, that she cannot win a conviction. That would not help us either. So that is a problem. And I think these field hearings may be the only answer.
All right, stay there. Final segment with Roger Stone. Straight ahead, we're going into Israel. We're going into this fake leak in CNN, the New York Times. We're going into Netanyahu. We're going into this attempt by these neocons to take over MAGA, saying the original MAGA are imposters. It's all coming up after this break. Share the live feed now, Real Life Stones on X, and go to stonezone.com to find all of Roger Stone's incredible material. USP medical grade methylene blue is all the rage. RFK Jr., Mel Gibson, scientists, doctors everywhere are talking about it. And we have the very best methylene blue, USP grade, made in Florida that you're gonna find anywhere. It is so much stronger than anybody else's. And right now, we have the biggest sale ever. You can get a bottle of the methylene blue capsules or liquid tincture, same great formula. And then when you buy one bottle, you get another bottle free for a limited time at thealexjonestore.com. Our methylene blue has over an 80% reorder. So for all of you that have been on the fence, go get yours now, already discounted, and get a free bottle with every bottle you buy at thealexjonestore.com. Buy one bottle of the liquid, already discounted, get one bottle free. Buy one bottle of the capsules already discounted, get one bottle free, but only until this Sunday, coming up in a few days. All right, I got more calls coming up that we're holding. I appreciate you doing that. People that disagree with me about simply saying the president needs to look at the ramifications, the different angles. They're going to say he didn't get the material because the Iranians took it out, which they said they had already done. It was political pressure on the president. I don't support the mullahs. That's all very important. We have Tulsi Gabbard, the head of national intelligence, says she confirms what POTUS has stated numerous times. Iran's nuclear facilities have been destroyed. If the Iranians chose to rebuild, they would have to rebuild all three facilities. That's all true. They've destroyed the facilities. Some of them are on the surface, totally obliterated, others massively damaged. That's not a lie when Trump and Marco Rubio say that. The issue is the Iranians have been hiding the material forever and have been caught doing it. So that's a separate issue. And then I knew, as I said in the last few weeks, that as soon as Trump did a ceasefire, shut this down, and didn't do a regime change, that through Netanyahu's surrogates, he doesn't do it himself. Oh, they snuck it out. We got to have regime change. Now, the Democrats are trying to make it a Watergate, that Trump won't give them the assessments. They're still getting it. And this is some big controversy. So, yeah, the attack was popular, 80+%. I think the president did have the power to do that. I think it's a clear and present danger. The issue is all the different bad scenarios. Then you've got the hype of the sleeper cells, which Iran has said they have, which I know they have, which they threaten to use. They're crazy. But Israel's got these think tanks and PR firms out saying when the attacks come, and Mark Levin's saying this, don't question if it's a false flag. Well, if Iran wants to back down, why would they stage attacks here? I think we're staring down the barrel of a new 9/11 and a major false flag. I will continue to track this as it unfolds. Then separately, Roger's really upset about, and we'll put the think tank Microsoft/Israeli group up, ADL funds it, came out before the attack and then during, saying anybody that tries to influence Trump is imposter MAGA and are on the payroll of Qatar or Iran or Russia. And they specifically singled out Tucker Carlson and myself. And yeah, there's the group saying, oh, when the false flags come, don't question those. That's really telegraphing false flag to me. So anybody that talks to the president or publicly simply has reservations, like Steve Bannon, who's certainly no dove, or you, is a traitor, and we are imposters, Roger. This would be like saying Michael Jordan is an imposter to the NBA, or Tom Brady was an imposter in the NFL. He was never in the NFL. Or Babe Ruth was never in the National Baseball League. I mean, and it's neocons, not just Israelis, that are literally, Mark Levin and others, running this, trying to come in and say they're MAGA now and basically take over the administration. Trump was signaling a little bit that he was getting into the war fever. Now he said, no regime change. I'm really angry at Netanyahu and Israel. I'm seeing him when he gets more information, as you always said, makes the right decision when he gets it. So that's a large gestalt. You've got the floor, Roger. I know you're angry about this.
Yeah, I really am. First of all, people who supported Ted Cruz for president should not be lecturing us about MAGA, because you and I and Owen Schroyer had a lot more to do with the election and supporting Donald Trump than Mark Levin, who was for Ted Cruz, who's one of the worst turds I've met in American politics in 50 years. He was George W. Bush's brain. If you didn't like George W. Bush, then you can't like Ted Cruz, because he was hired to write virtually every word that came out of George W. Bush's mouth. He's a neocon. I saw Tucker obliterate him in a terrific interview, wrote a long piece about it. So, Mark Levin, you were never MAGA. Don't lecture us about what MAGA is. Okay, my friend? You got a face for radio. Your voice is graded, but you were never with us. So don't now try to claim that you're purer than we are. The other thing I feel strongly about, though, Alex, is the time for this debate, because when a movement gets this big, and the MAGA movement has gotten very large, and that's a good thing. The same thing was true of the Reagan movement. And it certainly transcends the Republican Party. It's much larger than the Republican Party. But the time for
That's why the Republican Party's the biggest it's ever been. It's now the majority party. We're winning, so it's normal to have this debate.
But the time for the debate was before the president made the decision. The decision is made now. No boots on the ground, no prolonged presence in the country. We were over Iranian spearface for 45 minutes. This is not regime change more. I think the president was twitting his critics when he said, well, if we hit them so hard, if this inadvertently becomes regime change, that would be a plus. But there's a night and day difference between what Dick Cheney did in Iraq, which cost $500 billion in 8 years and cost thousands of lives, both Iraqis and Americans, and what Donald Trump is doing here. This was a surgical decision, and I'm not going to second guess the commander in chief. Look, you know that I come from the non-interventionist Ron Paul wing of the party. The last vote I cast in a Florida Republican presidential primary prior to Donald Trump was for Ron Paul. And I wrote The Bush Crime Family, which is the definitive book on the crimes of George Bush.
Yeah, let's be clear. You wrote the blueprint, and a lot of it was Trump and everything he said 40 years ago he's doing today. 80% was Trump, and then 20% was you on record as his main political advisor. And then Steve Bannon came in later and kind of added to that, and Stephen Miller. But I saw you mention too, imagine them saying Colonel Travis has nothing to do with the founding of Texas. He's an imposter. Sam Houston's an imposter. Davy Crockett's an imposter. William F. Austin's an imposter. I mean, that's literally like somebody showing up on a boat at Houston from Somalia and getting off the boat and then pointing at a statue of Stephen F. Austin or Colonel Travis and saying they're not Texans. I mean, the idea that Tucker Carlson, and by the way, I saw the bots later, they were saying when Trump called Israel and said, stop the bombing yesterday, that he now is on the payroll of the Qataris. They knew no one would buy Iran. So that literal talking point of this Israeli think tank with Microsoft is that Trump is now an imposter, Roger.
Well, Alex, I would argue that we have the scars to prove it. They tried to lock me up for 7 to 9 years for some non-existent crime. They actually put Owen Schroyer in jail. They
bankrupted you. They bankrupted me. They tried to put Flynn in prison. They put Bannon in prison. MTG's a traitor. Folks, wake up to the gaslighting. What an insane, bold move by the Likudniks, that's who's doing it, to say that we are imposters. That's like saying your mama is an imposter.
And I've never taken a dime from anybody to express a political view. And the assertion that I did is defamatory and outrageously false. But this decision was made, and the president proved yesterday, for those who say he's a stooge for Israel, yes, he proved yesterday that that's not true. The president's interested in peace. He made a very, very difficult decision.
Yeah, he said, he said, I'm particularly angry at Israel, meaning Netanyahu. And why is he angry?
Because they sought almost immediately to violate this very fragile ceasefire. What further proof could you have that within an hour of striking Iran, he wanted to bring them back to the table? He and Marco Rubio are calling them back to the table. This is the peace president. He wants to resolve this. He will resolve this. But we don't need prompting from people who are for Ted Cruz telling us that we're not real MAGA.
I got to tell you, though, they say it's us with bots. They made a major run at not having a reasonable debate within MAGA, which we should. We're the populist movement. The whole world's watching. It's real. It came out of the Tea Party, Ron Paul, myself, many others. And you, and then now they don't want us to try to influence our president. That is natural. That is healthy. We're not like the Democrats that just get talking points. No, we created the wave Trump came in on, and you bet we're going to influence him. They want us to shut up and say it's a betrayal of Trump if we put in our 2 cents, Roger.
Yeah, it's absurd. The thing to do right now, which is what I'm doing, is I'm supporting the commander in chief. Okay, this decision's made. It cannot be unmade. I think he's going to be proven to have been correct in this stunning and courageous decision. It's not boots on the ground. It's not endless war. It's not regime change. It was a surgical strike because he determined, on the basis of intelligence, that they were close enough to the development of a nuclear weapon, which they would share with their proxies. These are not people like the Japanese or the Germans in World War II, who wanted to kill us but wanted to live themselves. These are not people like the Russians and the Chinese, who want to destroy us but who want to live themselves and control the globe. These are people who want to die as long as they can kill us. Why can't we get that through our heads?
And then people go, well, that's the argument for regime change. It's 92 million people. It's surrounded by mountains. Only Alexander the Great could conquer them. Nobody else ever has. If they fall, that's great by their own people. But all the different war games show it goes from bad to worse. That's what we're saying. And all these one-dimensional figures that go, well, you want Israel to get blown up? No, I don't. Israel's got a giant nuclear arsenal. They get hit, they're going to nuke. I mean, it's insane. It's absolutely insane. Roger, in closing, and I got to go. Working your ass off. There's so much more on the radar screen. The big, beautiful bill, all the things that are going on. What else are you tracking? What else are you watching? And just in summation, how would you grade 155, 156 days in to the Trump administration, how successful we've all been? Because it's not just Trump, it's all of us. In general, when the big strokes where he actually can do stuff, a 98. When it comes to prosecuting the deep state, a F-. And then instead of bitching at Trump, but we know he's doing as best he can, what can we do to empower our agenda through him?
Well, Alex, obviously, I give him an A+ overall. The one area where I agree with you, we need to see some prosecutions. The cases are there. Those who orchestrated the greatest dirty trick in American political history, the Russian collusion hoax, they engaged in treason. There is no statute of limitations on treason. John Brennan can be charged tomorrow, and he should be. James Comey can be charged tomorrow, and he should be. Susan Rice can be charged tomorrow, and she should be. But in terms of his commitment to deport dangerous criminal illegals from the country, I think he's doing everything humanly possible. He has to continue to fight this judicial tyranny where reprobates and lowlifes like Norm Eisen go out and forum shop to try to find crazy left-wing judges who try to argue that the president of the United States doesn't have the authority to deport illegal immigrants, or the International Court of Trade, which no one has ever heard of, actually ruled a couple weeks ago that Trump doesn't have the authority to negotiate tariff deals with these are all designed to delay the Trump agenda and to try to not have the full impact.
And by the way, the Democrats, as you know, for listeners that might not know, they say they know it's popular and constitutional. They're just obstructing. So this is the big battle. It's an amazing time to be alive. So incredible. Roger Stone, StoneZone.com. Thank you for the time.
Alex, it's great to be with you. God bless you. And God bless Tucker Carlson. He's taking a lot of unfair incoming here. He's a great American patriot. I love the guy. I think what they're trying to do to him is outrageous. And Alex, I'm very, very proud of you for the way that you and Owen have stood up for him.
Well, I mean, you know Tucker longer than I do, but, you know, he admitted he came here to apologize to me 14 years ago about being controlled by neocons. He believed all their bull. I showed him Building 7, and he's a jolly old elf. I mean, he is, what you see on TV is the real deal. And that's the type of people we need. And he has been behind the scenes really trying to advise Trump. And absolutely, it's a badge of honor that he's under attack by all these scumbags. And even Michael Savage, who's a great guy, one of the smartest people I know, you know, said we need to, you know, Netanyahu needs to go. You know, that's the real regime change. He's the biggest threat to Israel. And that's a fact. Roger Stone, StoneZone.com. Thank you.
Alex, God bless you.
Thank you. God bless you.